Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening for the participants who are coming and joining the webinar today. So the webinar today is jointly organized by the Asian Institute of Technologies and the United Nations Environmental Program. And this webinar is themed on the circular economy and the sustainable infrastructure. So the event today is a special event that we would like to share the case study from the three countries, from South Korea, from China, and from Thailand. So before we come to the main program and go through the agenda, I would like to brief the audience of how we are going to use this webinar device so that it can also facilitate you in order to participate in this webinar. So the first things is that when you have a chat function is disabled in the webinar, so you cannot use a chat function there. So we are purposely off the chat function. When you have the raise hand when you want to speak, so you can raise your hand when you want to speak. And when you would like to have a question, so you can post your question in the question box so that our people behind the scene will, collect questions and also this question will be addressed by the speakers. And when you click, thumb up, it means that you are giving the voting for the question, which is the very important question. So we will look at the question that give the priority from the audience so that we will, address those questions. So for this event, we also have the Thai translation from English to Thai. For those who would like to listen in Thai language, you can click on the button of the interpretations and you can choose the channel of Thai language so that you can listen to the Thai translation. So we have a Thai translator translating from English to Thai. Okay, so this will be the setup for the audience so that we can comfort you by listening to this speaking. So now I would like to introduce our moderator today, Dr. Orathai Pongraktham. So Dr. Orathai is the program manager of the Thailand Environmental Institute. So she will be going to be the moderator for the first session for the 3 case study. So I give the floor to Dr. Orathai, please.
Thank you, Ajahn Waravet. It is my great pleasure to moderate the important webinar today on circular economy and sustainable infrastructure. In the next 1.5 hours, we will have rich knowledge sharing by our speakers and experts on circular economy application in infrastructure. Before diving into the case studies, please allow me to invite Ms. Elisa Tonda, the head of Consumption and Production Unit at the United Nations Environment Program, to deliver an opening speech. Mr. Elisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Orathai. And let me wish a very nice day to everybody who is online with us today. And I will not be starting prior to expressing our deepest gratitude to the Asian Institute of Technology for their long-standing collaboration with us that has triggered such an amazing webinar that you will be participating in today. And what the webinar will take us through today is that it's going to concentrate our attention on how we are going to address a pressing challenge, one of meeting or responding or addressing the infrastructure gap that exists in the region, and what are the solutions and what are the choices that we have ahead of us in addressing this gap. You can all see by the surroundings in which you are living that indeed there are great opportunities and great transformations that need to happen in order for us to be able to have the right infrastructure that would enable us to accelerate our progress towards our development agendas, including the Sustainable Development Goals. And these also translate into a funding gap that will need to be met in order to have the infrastructure in place that we require for sustainable development. And in the context of the Asian region, as estimated by the Asian Development Bank, that funding gap has the size of close to $500 billion per year. And what is the choice that we have ahead of us in addressing that challenge, meeting this gap? We can go by what we know as the business as usual, and building and making sure that we address this gap by following the current economic model. An economic model which is very much relying on a linear system in which we use resources, we bring them in infrastructure, and after they have been in infrastructure for some time, we discarded them. And that would be a linear economic system. What did this linear economic system triggered in the case of the Asia and the Pacific? It actually has led the region to be a relatively important actor in terms of exercising pressure on our natural resources. According to the latest estimations associated with Sustainable Development Goal 12, more than half of the global material resource demand was actually originating in the region. And as you know, this has very close connections and impact on other environmental aspects. That pressure on natural resources, that extraction of natural resources is responsible of 45% of our greenhouse gas emission and close to 90% of our impact on biodiversity and water stress. Not to mention the significant and visible impact it has in terms of pollution and waste generation. Or we can follow a different path. We can embrace the principle of circularity and transform our infrastructure in a sustainable one, in one that is really iconic in the way in which it embraces the idea of circular economy. And it can do so by extending the lifetime of the product, by making sure that we reuse the resources that are part of infrastructure, that we close the material loops, that we source resources locally, but we also rely on recycled or alternative materials. We also have opportunities of moving to different economics models, such as sharing economy, that would enable us to use more and take more advantage of the resources that are out there in our infrastructure. And obviously, these will have very significant impact on other environmental aspects. Just to mention one, in conjunction with the reduction of the greenhouse gas emission, reduction of impact on climate that it could have. It has been proven by some studies that have been developed by the International Resource Panel that using recycled material in the context of residential building could reduce between 15 and 20% greenhouse gas emission, and with more improved approaches to circularity, additional 14 to 18% reduction of emission can be achieved. So there's definitely a win-win in making a choice towards circularity in terms of the impact of the environment, but we will hear more in the context of the session that these will also have significant opportunities in terms of jobs and better quality jobs, and it will still be an important driver of economic development. We do have opportunities we can take advantage of exactly now, as we are in the context of the recovery from the crisis that we have experienced in the context of the pandemic. And it's an opportunity that we cannot miss, even if the signals that we're having now is that we have not taken sufficiently advantage of this opportunity. And the investments in the context of the recovery that have gone into infrastructure, be that mobility, be that building, have not necessarily been channeling towards the greening and the sustainability of that infrastructure. So definitely something that we would want to reflect on and see how best we can think and design the infrastructure that we're planning now for it to be circular and sustainable. So let me conclude by reminding us that we do have a choice, and it's a choice that can shift us towards circularity, particularly in decisions that will have a very long-term impact for us, because as you know, the infrastructure that we're building now will be with us for a very, very long time. So I look forward to being inspired by the experiences and the examples that we will be hearing today. And in doing so, I wish all of us a very fruitful webinar. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Mr. Lisa, for the insightful opening remarks and the overview of the importance of accelerating the circular economy for sustainable development, for social and economic development, and also for as contribution to climate solutions. Next, please join me to welcome Dr. Navid Anwar, the Vice President of Knowledge Transfer of Asian Institute of Technology, or AIT, to give us the opening speech. Dr. Navid, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me start once again to thank UNEP for collaborating with us, with AIT, giving us the opportunity to work on such important issues. We have been conducting these seminars and webinars for almost a year now on different subjects. And so I thank Ms. Tonda as well as Dr. Mishnat for engaging AIT into this very important initiative, which is now, obviously, we all know that it has a kind of an urgency that needs to be addressed. So I will just start from where Ms. Tanda has concluded her talk, that the infrastructure is going to be with us for a long time. So actually, the life cycle of infrastructure, as you know, spans anywhere between 50 to 100 or even longer years. And throughout this life cycle, the resources are consumed continuously. First, and most importantly, during the development of the infrastructure itself, the construction phase or the development of the physical system that we need. And obviously, natural resources are consumed and are used. And that is where I think, like myself, being an engineer, a structural engineer who designed buildings and structures and roads and bridges, not enough emphasis is sometimes has been given in the past, especially in how to design structures that would be sustainable for one, or design infrastructure, and then also which will lead itself to circular economy in the future. So I think the development of the design document, the building codes, regulations, policies, right from the beginning is a key to making sure that we start at the footing. We design something, we construct something which will support throughout its life cycle the circularity as well as sustainability, and especially the end of life where the structure will no longer be in use. How do we convert that into, or return it back to resources that we started from? And a lot of work obviously is being done, but the difficulty is that a lot of infrastructure that has already been built before this realization that we have now is still going to be with us for a considerable time. Then the second part, if the infrastructure, is obviously the operational aspects, which actually consume a considerable amount of energy as well. And that is where we have a lot of opportunity to streamline the processes that are used during the whole life cycle of infrastructure usage. And that will come from lifestyle, that will come from the waste generation, recycling of the waste, transportation, energy, all of those aspects that we are now focusing on. And over there, the circularity of the resources that will be used and the systems that enable that to happen will be very important. As we know, that the smart city aspects and the green city aspects and all those initiatives are also enablers in this aspect. But definitely one of the key cornerstone will be the circular economy, because if we start thinking about consuming resources in a manner that we do not extract new ones, then obviously that is far beneficial to the climate, to the planet, than always extracting new and wasting and then throwing away. So we are very glad that AIT is part of this one. There are several programs within AIT, a lot of research, a lot of academic research and development programs which which deal with aspects related to infrastructure development, related to waste management, related to energy, related to transport, and so on. So as an academic institution, obviously it's a responsibility that we impart this knowledge to the new generation, the people who come here. We could carry out research, and at the same time we can continuously do capacity development as well as knowledge transfer from our side to aid and to facilitate this important journey that we are all in. So with that, I would like to thank once again UNEP to inviting AIT to be part of that. And I would like to thank all the speakers who are joining us today. And we have looked at the upcoming topics. They're really very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to learning a lot from this one. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Navid. Thank you for delivering the open remark and also elaborate the opportunity to streamline the sustainable infrastructure and the sustainable and efficiency usage of infrastructure through circular economy initiative. Coming up next is our keynote speech on the international good practice principles on sustainable infrastructure. We are honored to welcome Mr. Rowan Palmer, the lead of the Sustainable Infrastructure Investment Team at the UNEP. Mr. Rowan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. If everyone could bear with me while I share my slides. Please tell me if you don't see them, but if I don't hear anything, I assume everybody can see. So thank you very much for the introduction and for the opportunity to speak to you today, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joining us. As mentioned, I'm going to give a very brief overview of the international good practice principles for sustainable infrastructure. But before diving into the principles, I'd like to just start with a couple of basic definitions to clarify what we mean exactly when we're talking about infrastructure, because I think different people have sort of different ideas about this depending on the context. So first of all, we're talking about infrastructure in all sectors. So in addition to traditional sectors like energy, water, transport, we're also covering other things like housing, food systems, telecommunications, healthcare, etc. And the second thing is that, very importantly, our discussion of infrastructure systems includes both built, or sometimes called gray infrastructure in all of these sectors, but also natural infrastructure, also sometimes called green infrastructure. And here we're talking about landscapes and ecosystems and basically parts of nature that provide many of the same services that built infrastructure does. And then we also have hybrid infrastructure that combines elements of built and natural infrastructure. And then when we talk about sustainable infrastructure, we're using a definition that we've adapted from the Inter-American Development Bank. This defines sustainable infrastructure systems as those that are planned, designed, constructed, operated, and decommissioned in a manner to ensure economic and financial, social, environmental, and institutional sustainability over the entire infrastructure lifecycle. And there's two important things about this that I'd like to highlight. The first is that sustainable infrastructure is not referring to any specific type of infrastructure or particular sectors, but it's actually referring to the outcomes of infrastructure development. So just because an infrastructure project might be in a sector that's considered sustainable, like renewable energy, it doesn't necessarily mean that that project would be sustainable in the holistic sense. It might be low carbon, but there may be negative impacts to biodiversity. It may be resource inefficient. There may be social impacts or other things that decrease its sustainability in the broader sense. And the second important thing is that when we talk about the infrastructure life cycle, which you can see in the diagram on my slide here, we're not just talking about the life cycle of a project or an asset. This is part of it, but the full infrastructure life cycle, as you can see, also includes things that happen before you get to the project level, or as we say, upstream of any particular project. So here we're talking about the enabling environment, the institutions, policies, regulations that govern infrastructure planning and development and operation. And we're also talking about the strategic planning and prioritization phases, the development of project pipelines, and the phases when decisions are made about what type of infrastructure to build and where to build it. So moving on to the international good practice principles themselves. These are 10 principles designed to help policymakers primarily take needs-based, systems-level integrated approaches to planning and delivering sustainable infrastructure. These principles apply to the whole life cycle, all the way from the strategic planning through to design, construction, operations, decommissioning. But there is a strong focus on the enabling policy environment and institutional environment, and these early planning phases that occur upstream of the project level. These principles were developed as part of UNEP's implementation of a UN Environment Assembly resolution on sustainable infrastructure that was adopted in 2019. And the principles were developed by a working group led by UNEP, but about 30 organizations with particularly key contributions that I'd like to recognize from OECD, UNOPS, WWF, IUCN, Inter-American Development Bank, and the ILO. And they were also informed by extensive feedback we received from the UN member states during a series of consultations that we did around a draft version of the principles. And so these principles were originally published in February 2021. They were endorsed by the UN Environment Management Group, which is a UN system-wide body in October of 2021. And the principles were then recognized by all UN member states in a new resolution on sustainable infrastructure at the 5th UN Environment Assembly in the beginning of March this year. So here we see the 10 principles. I don't have time now to go into each of them in detail, but I'd like to quickly highlight Principle 5, which is resource efficiency and circularity, and is the topic of the event today. And I'll explain the 3 key ideas that underlie the principles, and sort of as I do that, I'll try and touch on how they relate particularly to Principle 5 and the concepts of resource efficiency and circularity. So these 3 key ideas, just to quickly give a bit of detail on Principle 5. So here we see it's circularity and the use of sustainable technologies and construction materials should be planned and designed into infrastructure systems to minimize their resource footprints and reduce emissions, waste, and other pollutants. And there are 2 main aspects of this, and looking specifically at this idea of circularity, there are 2 main aspects that are really relevant for infrastructure. The first is incorporating circularity into the infrastructure itself to increase the resource efficiency of that infrastructure and reduce waste, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants. And then the second aspect is developing infrastructure in a way that enables circularity in other processes beyond the infrastructure itself. So for example, waste management infrastructure that enables industrial symbiosis, or energy infrastructure that enables district heating and cooling systems, just to give a couple of examples. So moving back to the principles in general, and these 3 key ideas at the heart of them. The first is the idea of needs-based infrastructure development. So by this, we mean infrastructure planning that uses data to understand the need for services, not just the demand for services, but the actual need for services, and then considers how to meet those needs most effectively and most sustainably using all available options. And very importantly, these options could include alternatives to building new gray infrastructure. So things like managing demand, rehabilitating or upgrading existing infrastructure, basically extending the lifespan of existing infrastructure, or investing in natural infrastructure. This is, of course, extremely important for resource efficiency, for minimizing the resource and carbon footprints of infrastructure, because the best way to reduce these is just simply to build less infrastructure. And if you can do that while still meeting service needs, then this is a good outcome. The second key idea is the idea of systems level approaches. So this is opposed to more project level intervention. So looking at sustainability further upstream in this life cycle, with an emphasis on the enabling environment and strategic planning. And the idea is that by considering sustainability as early as possible, there are more options that are still going to be politically, economically, technically feasible. Once you're looking at a specific project, decisions have already been made that may eliminate some more sustainable possibilities. This is really important for circularity for a number of things, but incorporating circularity into infrastructure development to improve its resource efficiency and reduce carbon footprint, this requires certain enabling conditions that need to be there from the beginning. So, for example, to use recycled or repurposed construction materials in the construction of infrastructure, these materials need to be included in building codes and in design and engineering specifications, for example. And then the third key idea is this idea of integration and integrated approaches. And very simply, this means, again, thinking beyond the project. So recognizing that infrastructure systems are integrated parts of a larger system, and thinking about the interlinkages between different infrastructure systems in different sectors and locations, and then across the life cycle. And this is really important for that second aspect of circularity in infrastructure, which is designing infrastructure to enable various circular processes. So things like waste to energy, district heating and cooling, etc. We need to think beyond the project and think about how the systems work together. In addition to this idea of integration also includes considering nature as infrastructure, accounting for the services it provides and how it interacts with built infrastructure systems. It also means thinking about the environmental, social, and economic dimensions of sustainability, and where the synergies and the trade-offs might be and how to balance them. And it also means understanding the positive and negative impacts of infrastructure at the aggregate level. So, of course, the environment or communities or whoever have to absorb negative impacts from multiple projects, and it's important to understand these. And so, by taking these kind of needs-based, systems-level integrated approaches can lead to infrastructure that is better aligned with users' needs. It's more resilient to risks and flexible in its service provision. And it can better balance the social, environmental, and economic outcomes of infrastructure development, and ultimately can be a better investment of the money. We've heard about this massive infrastructure investment gap, and it's important, in the time of constrained public budgets, that this money it gets the most benefit. So I see my time is up, so I will end there, and I will paste a couple of links to the principles and some other resources into the chat for anyone who's interested. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rowan. Before proceeding to the case study, we would like to ask the participants and also the speaker who are convenient to turn on the cameras. So we will take a group photo, online group photo, for a minute, and then we will proceed to the next session. So if you are comfortable, kindly turn on the camera, and then the organizer, once you're done, please let me know.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes, we are done with the group photo. For your information, we will share the reports of the 3 case study in the chat box, so you will receive it. Thank you. Kunok, please.
Thank you, Jan Warwick. For the next session, I'll just proceed to it quickly, and we will try to still keep up on the time. So I have 3 speakers who will present a case study from Republic of Korea, from Thailand, and also from China. So the speaker will have 10 minutes each. At 8 minutes, I will ask, please allow me to interrupt just a little bit. I'll just say 2 minutes left. So you can kindly wrap up, and then we will also have time at the next session on the panel discussion to continue. So kindly watch for your time as well. For the participant, if you have question, you can kindly type your question in the chat box, and we will come back to you on that. So for the next speaker, please welcome Dr. Hosok Kim, the Chief Research Fellow of the Korean Environment Institute, to share with us the case study on transition to electric mobility and renewable energy in the Republic of Korea. Mr. Kim, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dr. Uratai. So am I showing a right screen? Okay, thank you.
Yes,
thank you, Dr. Uratai, and thank you, UNEP and AIT for the invitation. It's my pleasure to join this wonderful event. From around the 4th session of the UN Environment Assembly in 2019, UNEP, SIP, and I'm not sure whether you're still using the name the SIP, but UNEP and I discussed a lot about the sustainable infrastructure and in the context of green economy. And last year, we jointly identified and compiled 3 country cases into a scoping report, scaling up circular economy through sustainable infrastructure. I believe you're already familiar with that report. So we aim to take a closer look at the interaction between circular economy and the sustainable infrastructure with real country cases, and wanted to share our findings with the countries that are interested in implementing similar practices. Today, I will introduce the Korea case. This is an outline of the talk. I'm going to give you some background information briefly, and I'm going to talk about the green energy transition in RK, which is significantly advanced by Korea's Green Recovery Plan. And I'm going to talk about their circular economy implications, and I will end up talking about Korea's response, the future waste recycling system, and conclusion. Background: the sustainable infrastructure is an important element of green economy transition, which is an important tool for sustainable development. Infrastructure determines the modes of associated production and consumption activities. So without changing it, it's not possible to shift our economies to green and sustainable economies completely. So in green economy transition, definitely green fiscal policy such as green tax is important, but they change the cost of non-green activities and change the related decision-making towards a more sustainable way. But when the activities are related to some forms of infrastructure, this would happen only when the incremental cost, for instance, caused by green taxes or carbon taxes, exceeds the benefits from sticking to the use of conventional infrastructure. So sustainable infrastructure is the key enabler of green economy transition realistically. Regarding energy, which is the theme of this case, one of the vision of Korea's green transition is reshaping the energy infrastructure. So along with the demand supply and the system-wide and the industry side changes. We are expecting, in terms of infrastructure, we are expecting renewable energy-based decentralized power systems and the transition to electric mobility. The power and transportation systems heavily rely on infrastructure, as you know. Now, PV panels and EV batteries and charging systems are replacing coal-fired power plants and the gas stations. So we can say that they are the energy and transportation infrastructure for the future sustainable development. The pandemic was painful and unwelcome, surely, but wisely, many countries have been coping with the crisis by investing in reshaping and building new infrastructure for future sustainable development. So in Korea, through our Green Recovery Plan, which is the Korean New Deal, a significant deal of infrastructure for renewable energy and electric mobility has been built in the power and transportation sectors. The Korean New Deal plans to invest 160 trillion by Korean won by 2025. It's about 137 billion US dollar. Of which about 42.7 trillion is about 34% of total the Korean New Deal investment is for Green New Deal. As it plans to invest 24.3 trillion in green energy transition, which is nearly the 57% of total Green New Deal investment, and 9.2 trillion for renewable energy, and 13.1 trillion for green mobility, including electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, so which are 21% and 30% of total Green New Deal investment, respectively. Increasing the share of renewable energy and electric vehicles means that at some point in their lives, substantial and increasing volumes of used PV panels and the EV batteries will be produced. And the PV panels and EV batteries are complex pieces of technology which require expensive raw resources to be built, and they could bring serious negative environmental and health impacts if not properly disposed of. The reason why handling and recycling decommissioned PV panels and used EV battery is that they are new. They are new types of waste that many countries are having problem dealing with. This is mainly because of lack of institutional arrangement, specialized technology and capacity, specific waste management infrastructure, and immature markets and relevant businesses. They are all barriers to enhancing circular economies in the sectors. So in 2018, the Ministry of Environment announced a new policy for electric vehicle batteries and the PV panels, recognizing the growing need to assure the safe and effective recycling of these new types of waste. And it also announced the plans to establish regional collection centers for them. So the Ministry of Environment has constructed 4 regional centers across the country last year, August 2021, and started its official operation on January 1st this year. The initial construction cost of the 4 centers was about 17 billion Korean won, and its operating and maintenance cost is 1.6 billion per year. The storage capacity is not huge for now, but it can be extended when needed, considering the growth of volume of used battery and decommissioned panels each year. The centers are...
sorry, 2 minutes left. Kindly conclude it and we can continue to the next session.
Okay,
thank you.
The centers are tasked with recovering the used batteries, performing primary inspection, evaluating its performance, storing, and delivering them to recycling business when demand for used battery arise. So the EV batteries are volatile and flammable when operating at high temperature. So they have to be treated very carefully, and this should be one of the key features of the collection centers and regarding storing. The role of the collection center is now limited to simple collection of waste. It aims to establish basic infrastructure service and the institutional arrangement that can facilitate the waste management market. The collection center are basic infrastructure to respond to the increasing production of EV batteries and the PV panels. This is essential public services to avoid environmental impacts of new types of energy and transportation infrastructure. And this is the first step of establishing an integrated recycling system for used EV batteries and decommissioned solar PV panel. According to a recent study for EA, cost for battery collection and transports are almost twice of the recycling business's margin. The collection center can save these costs significantly during its collection service to avoid environmental impact. For conclusion, I'd like to emphasize the importance of an integrated approach, as Rowan already emphasized in his presentation. The sustainable development is multi-dimensional. The renewable energy and EVs are very good things for climate and green energy transition, but do not necessarily enhance circularity. This case study demonstrated how low carbon transitions in transportation and other sector can be aligned with circular economy goals. I'd like to cover the things to emphasize but share, but I think that we can visit them in the discussion session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim, for the insight of the transition to the electric mobility and also renewable energy in South Korea. So next, please welcome Dr. Suchitra Wasana Damrongdi, the Senior Researcher at the Environmental Research Institute, Chulalongkorn University. She will share with us the waste management reform for Thailand's circular economy. Dr. Suchitra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oratai, and thank you for UNEP and AIT to invite me to join this webinar on circular economy and sustainable infrastructure. Maybe my title maybe is not directly linked to the built infrastructure, but my research is more on creating an enabling environment for resource efficiency, focusing on solid waste management. And I want to advocate for the waste management reform for Thailand's circular economy by focusing on the plastic pollution crisis that we are all facing right now globally. And because of time limitation, may I move to my presentation? So I just want to give some snapshot on the problem that we are facing in Thailand. We are the land of the chemical and plastic industry. They are quite big industry in Thailand, so we enjoy a lot to consume a lot of plastic products, and especially for plastic packaging, comprising for 42% of the plastic products. And as you can see here, we have used a lot of plastic packaging for food and beverage drink, and what we have quite concerned is the growth of non-recyclable, such as which is a multi-layer material which is hard to recycle. So it's quite blooming in Thai market right now. And especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, we are facing a lot of the food packaging from online food delivery. And I estimate the amount of packaging, the plastic packaging from the online delivery, it can reach up to 6,000 billion pieces by 2025. So it's quite serious issue right now in Thailand, and I think in other countries as well. So because Thailand still lack of infrastructure for the source separation, and our pattern of consumption and behavior still kind of in the linear economy, just consume and then dispose. So most of the local government just collect our waste and then dispose to landfills, and sometimes it causes leakage to the environment. This is some statistics on the graph of on the municipal solid waste. And this is a picture that I took in Samut Prakan province. It's just next to Bangkok. It's really quite eye-opening picture. It's very serious one. And this is a picture of the fire incident at dump site. It's the biggest incident at Pakrasa, a dump site in Samut Prakan as well. And this one had caused the government at that time the military government just stepped up to declare waste as a national agenda. But when we see the existing laws and regulation related to solid waste management, above fund is like the Public Health Act and the Act on the Maintenance of the Cleanliness and Orderliness. These are two major acts that give authority to the local government to collect and dispose waste. So you can see the written article they just mentioned using based on the linear economy approach. The main act didn't mention about recycling or waste reduction at all. But in 2019, the implementing acts of the subordinate laws, they just start to change the policy, mentioning that the waste generator should segregate their waste. But still, the problem is most of local government, they don't issue local enabling laws or ordinance to enable or enforce these articles. And you see at below the timeline, we have seen the rising problem of plastic waste, but so far we don't have any laws or regulations to reduce and control the plastic waste in Thailand. We have only plastic waste roadmap and the action plan without legal backup. So most of the action or the efforts so far have been relying on the voluntary approach, even though we have seen some progress in the case of voluntary ban of the single-use plastic bag from the retailers. But then the COVID-19 disrupt everything. We just now return to the normal life of using a lot of plastic bags and other plastic containers again. So this is just point out that we have a lot of problem because we have a lot of local governments that the central government cannot regulate or supervise them to do or to promote waste segregation at source, and they don't have much budget to invest in the infrastructure for the source separation or separate waste collection system. So I think it's time for the government to think about reform of the system itself by basing on the waste management hierarchy as had been used or applied in European countries for a long time, and in many countries and also in South Korea and in Japan, we have seen they apply the concept of 3Rs, reduce, reuse, recycling. And right now we're talking about the circular economy concept, which are like quite the same thing, but maybe they more on emphasizing on the creating the economic benefit from the new business models based on 9Rs. So now we would like the Thai government to change, to reform the legal infrastructure and the institutional framework to turn into the circular economy, which needs a lot of effort from all stakeholders. And I want to highlight that we still lack of the EPR principle and laws that have been used in many countries as a policy instrument to drive, to shift the economy from linear economy to circular economy. And when I compare the legal structures from other countries, from developed countries and our ASEAN countries, I think Thailand still lag behind other countries in terms of the legal framework. Of course, it cannot like determine that we are lack in terms of operation, but still having a law is the kind of backbone of the good infrastructure that we should shape off. And if we look closely, comparing among the ASEAN countries, you can see even the laws mandating people to reduce and segregate waste at source, this one, it should be fundamental things, but still, we still in the subordinate laws, it's not in the main law. So this is the urgent task that I want to highlight and promote, that we should reform the laws. And we, of course, we still lack of the laws that helping the EPR principle and no loss on the circular economy. So this is the key findings that I have observed that actually we have the policy on circular economy in Thailand. We have established a subcommittee on circular economy, but we still need laws and like clear policies to reform the existing infrastructure. And without the legal reform, we think that the plastic waste crisis will remain unchanged or with minor change based on the voluntary approach. So in the short term, we have seen producers and retailers start to have a role in having a voluntary EPR scheme for packaging to set up some take-back system, but it's not enough. The government have to come and give strong intervention to create incentive for producer to go for the eco-design and support take-back to work together with the local government. So I call for an interministerial working group on CE promotion laws, because CE is like a cross sector. It's not only on the waste management sector. As today we talk about the building materials, it also requires CE. And about South Korea speaker just mentioned about EV. Now Thailand is promoting EV vehicles a lot, but we seldom talk about the collection or take-back system for used EV batteries. So this is something that we need to talk more, and also for the solar panel as well.
Dr. Suchita, one last minute, kindly
Okay,
conclude.
so
Thank
I
you.
just give some snapshot on the draft CE Promotion Act that I would like to talk to the key stakeholders whether they agree to have this kind of overall structure that we have a basic law on Circular Economy Promotion Act. So if this act it decided to be a promotional one, it's not just only commanding things. We want to have the EPR for packaging, for electronic equipments, products, and other products, as I mentioned, and maybe coupled with the kind of CE procurement, mandatory procurement requirement, so that it can boost the demand for the CE product as well. And we need to rethink about the institutional framework as well, because right now, Monterey Pollution Control Department is not in the role that could lead the CE right now. So this is one thing that I will go and talk and interview stakeholder for the option of the legislative and institutional reform design, the one that will be suitable to Thailand case. So I just end up my presentation with the quotation from UNIP Executive Director that I really love it. We will not recycle our way out of the plastic pollution crisis. We need a systemic transformation to achieve the transition to a circular economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Suchita, for really emphasizing on the critical of Thailand to reform our waste management system, like adopting the circular economy. Now let's diving into the case study from China. Please welcome Ms. Ying Chan Song, the research specialist of China Academy for Environmental Planning, to share with us on the green building in Shenzhen, China. Ms. Song, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello everyone, me Chen Song. And next I'd like to give a presentation on a case study of China, green buildings in Shenzhen. And here's an introduction on why we pick Shenzhen as a green building case. In the COVID-19 context, infrastructure investment is a dominant component of the stimulus package in China. And ensuring that infrastructure is sustainable is of vital importance for green recovery. And Shenzhen is the first mover in developing green buildings in China since 2008. It has become one of the cities with the largest scale and density of green buildings in the country. And for the national policy background, environmental problems emerged with the economy boost in China. And since Chinese policymakers realized that circular economy can contribute to achieving ecological civilization and sustainable development, China has been promoting the development of circular economy on a large scale. From the 11th five-year plan to the latest 14th one, as well as publishing the Circular Economy Promotion Law. And for current COVID-19 context, green buildings have advantages from both health and greener recovery perspective. It could bring a healthier ventilation, cleaner water, as well as better waste separation system to prevent the virus. Besides, green buildings, relevant materials, and recycling industries have huge economic growth potentials. For instance, green building materials only account for 10% of all building materials, with an estimated market size of 350 billion yuan. As for Shenzhen, it has been undertaking national pilot tasks for green buildings in energy consumption monitoring, renewable energy applications, construction waste reduction and utilization, etc. And since 2006, Shenzhen has issued a series of policies to help the development of green buildings. The Shenzhen Green Building promotion measures included major economic incentives. It has set up a special fund to support the development of green buildings. It has also set up a green building and construction technology innovation award every 3 years, giving the green buildings opportunities for financial subsidies. And public procurement and other incentive measures are also applied to promote the development of the construction waste recycling industry. Also, on the other side, if the construction fails to meet relevant standards or regulations, the responsible parties may be charged 20,000 to 300,000 yuan. And here are some detailed measures. I will talk about some of them as time is limited. For renewable energies, in 2009, Shenzhen became one of the first batch of demonstration cities for the application of renewable energy in the buildings. It has since explored renewable energy production and usage technologies, primarily with solar energy, but also biomass energy and geothermal energy. In Shenzhen, the solar heated water projects can result in annual savings of 19,000 tons of standard coal and 47,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. And for water saving and recycling, saving water resources is integrated in the planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance of green buildings life cycle. The water for landscape purposes within or around a green building is mainly the rainwater collected from rooftops. And constructed wetlands use water like sewages and purify them, recycling up to 200 tons of water per day. The recycled water can be also used for local irrigation, cleaning, and other purposes. And for digital solutions, Shenzhen has built a real-time online platform for monitoring the building energy consumption. Since 2017, Shenzhen has been releasing an annual report analyzing public building energy consumption data, as well as providing energy-saving renovation suggestions. And here are two green building examples in Shenzhen. The material saving event center is realized through the use of high-performing concrete and the recycling of construction waste. Also, the interior design also includes bamboos. And Shoko Cruise Center uses energy-saving elevator, water-saving appliances, and water-saving irrigation. As for capacity building, the government strengthens professional skills training and qualification management for green building practitioners and enterprises. Shenzhen Green Building Association established the professional qualification evaluation scheme for granting professional titles. And also other organizations also recruit experts for relevant training and consulting. And Shenzhen also strengthens cooperation with green building organizations in other cities, provinces, surrounding regions, and internationally, including with the British Building Research Institute, as well as German Energy Agency. It also takes the lead in organizing major domestic and international exchange activities. However, challenges persist. Economic incentives are not sufficient and some of them are not easily accessible. Construction waste management is still relatively inefficient, and green building operations are difficult to realize due to higher costs. And moving forward, to tackle these challenges and further boost the industry, Shenzhen is strengthening policy implementation through integrated approaches such as government source control, recycling policy innovation, as well as recycled material promotion. In summary, in the past 15 years, green buildings in Shenzhen has shown multiple synergetic benefits. It brings further opportunities to break through the traditional linear infrastructure business models, to fundamentally strengthen the compatibility of the economy with the environment and make the social economy more resilient. Other regions in China have also replicated Shenzhen's development model, and Shenzhen is still exploring multiple pathways to further boost the industry. So that's all. Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much, Ms. Song. So now we are at the next session where the speakers on the case study kindly stay on the spotlight, and please allow me to invite Dr. Mustad Mimon, the Program Management Officer at UNEP, to be moderator for this panel discussion. And at this session, we will have 20 minutes that you can elaborate more of the initiative and case study. Dr. Mustad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Oratai. So, thank you again very much for all the colleagues for the great presentations, and especially to Professor Dr. Kim and Professor Dr. Sujitra, and also our colleague from China. So now let's go to the little bit on panel discussion to see the views, because when we are talking through the presentation, we are more in a way of a certain focus. Now it's more open. So first of all, I think you already saw the guiding questions, but I will put one question to each of us. So for the first policies, regulations, and perspectives, and also because Republic of Korea, South Korea has taken a long journey, so the challenges and the key success factors. So for Professor Kim to really provide us on that. Then second, to Dr. Sujitra, that she is also in the field of herself in the knowledge transfer and capacity development as a professor, and also running as a Zero Waste Chula, very good initiative. So she can put her perspectives on the capacity development and knowledge transfer. And then also from our colleague Ms. Song, she was talking about some of the government support systems. So I would like to put the third, this guiding question on incentives and the financing for the sustainable infrastructure or green buildings in per se in China. So am I clear for all three guiding questions? So first we go to Dr. Kim for policies, regulations, perspectives, and more important challenges and key success factors in the journey in South Korea. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, regarding the policy and regulation and practice aspects, I guess the strong institutional frameworks and frameworks are needed to be established. It have to be strengthened and continuously evaluated to incorporate new lessons learned from the practices year by year. So I guess the first thing the key enabler of this story is to strengthen the regulation and about how to return used battery and decommission the PV panels. So regulatory aspects, the thing we have been trying to strengthen is to enhance the overall regulatory framework. One of them is that we are going to apply EPR to the PV panel from next year. So that's the one thing. And another point I'd like to share with you is the market. We need more waste collection centers to operate the entire recycling system. But due to the low profitability of collection center in the early stage of market development, the efforts to build such center may need to be led by governments, as demonstrated in the Korean case. This is the typical case of market failure, leading to insufficient investment in public goods. And the markets and business need collection service, but no one wants to pay the cost alone. And this is the point where the the public finance can jump in. And I didn't ask. Yeah, that's it. I know that we are the land behind the schedule. So that's it for now.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. We will come back with a Q&A session as well. So now over to Dr. Sujitra for the capacity development and knowledge transfer to support circular economy through either waste management or sustainable infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much, Mustaq. Great to see you again. I might share with you, like, I'm working 2 levels. The first level is like national level, that I try to convey the knowledge that I accumulate during the past 4 years to the policymakers. As I mentioned about the need to have the waste reform towards the circular economy. Like tomorrow, I have an appointment to meet the Director General of the Pollution Control Department to present what I have presented today to him and his colleague to push the PCD to be kind of political champion to advocate for the waste reform. This is one thing that I'm working for at the national level. And you mentioned about July Zero Waste Initiative. It's a kind of role model of driving the university as a zero waste campus. So we have developed that kind of initiative for over 6 years now. And I have a chance to work with the BMA, Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, and we will have a kind of develop an action plan on solid waste management. And we will have kind of a knowledge transfer of the July Zero Waste Initiative to the project that will kind of scale up our initiative to other universities and also school toward the zero waste schools and campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So now over to Ms. Song, and about the incentives and the financing for the sustainable infrastructure or the green building. And I also saw in Q&A one question about the fund mechanism in China. So both are relative questions for you, Ms. Song. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I presented just now, the Shenzhen Municipal Finance Department has set up a special fund for the green buildings in Shenzhen. So this fund has a dedicated part for green building technology development. And Shenzhen has also set up a award every 3 years to reward Shenzhen's green building development and technology innovation. And the green building evaluation organized by the corresponding department of Shenzhen is free of charge for applicants. And the green buildings that have passed the assessment can apply for financial subsidies from both the national level and municipal level. So the estimated budget for the annual construction waste reduction and recycling economic incentives is about 380 million yuan. So perfecting the allocation of the funds is still an important issue for China at present. And recently, China is promoting the post-evaluation of the funds to improve the efficiency and tackle present challenges. And I also saw the Q&A question. It's about to improve the fund policy to be more scientific and practical. As I just said, that the use of funds should be focused on all kinds of environmental policies, especially the allocation, efficiency, and effects of the funds. Actually, last year, Ministry of Ecological Environment has set up a guideline to start policy evaluation. And Shenzhen Ecological Environmental Bureau has also focused on the evaluation of environmental policy, especially the fund policy, and explore the relationship between the amount of funds used and the environmental benefits. Is to make the fund policy more scientific. And policy evaluation is an important scientific support for analyzing the effective policy as well as defining the direction of policy improvement. So I think this is an effective approach that could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Song. And I see Mr. Cheng Chen is trying to ask Dr. Sujitra about Thailand municipality. So you want to reply, Dr. Sujitra, on his question? But let me read. I am not sure if all participants can read the chat. So let me read the question. How to encourage local municipalities to move from the end-of-pipe solutions to the municipal solid waste management, like landfill and waste energy, to upstream measures like a source separation? What are the funding options? What are the main barriers? Over to you, Dr. Sujitra.
Okay. Thank you very much for this interesting question. Actually, this morning I just had an interview with the people from DLA, Department of Local Administration, who is supervising the action plan for the local government on waste management issue. And we talk about having more rewards or bonus for the local government who could achieve the zero waste target in their area. This is one thing that we could incentivize local government based on the existing budget. But I think in the long term, we need more polluter pay principle application to collect, like for example, single-use plastic fee into the earmark fund, because we lack now, the local government lack of shortage of budget. So we need some additional fund, extra revenue from like kind of single plastic fee or tax to support the investment on the infrastructure. And lastly will be about having the EPR laws for packaging and other things to help the local government to collect the used products and packaging for recycling or repurposing as following the circular economy approach? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sujitra. And before I move to Dr. Orathai back, one last question in Q&A. Maybe Professor Kim may like to provide some insights from Korea on the wastewater reuse, like infrastructure for that, and especially in the pandemic times and so on, that how the daily water use can be recovered. So I understand that's about the wastewater reuse. So the Korea infrastructure is quite good for that reason. So over to Dr. Kim, please.
Well, thank you for the question, but unfortunately, I'm not familiar with water issue. But I'd like to share one thing I really want to share through this the webinar. So actually, during the discussion session, I wanted to share the view about capacity. The recycling of e-waste, as you know, is technically the more complex than the recycling of, for instance, municipal solid waste. In many cases, private recyclers currently operating in the conventional e-waste recycling market are not skilled enough in most countries to manage new types of waste from electric vehicles and the photovoltaic PVs and effectively. The technical variables are very high. So continuous efforts and investments must be directed towards capacity building and technology advancement, research and development in AP countries. So UNEP and I have talked about the establishment of the capacity building program in Korea. As far as I know, there's some initial ideas will be included in the financial report of this project to KT. So I think that would be the very interesting idea and another occasion to collaborate between the participants of this webinar and the partner countries. Thank you.
Thank you. So just quickly for our wastewater and COVID-19, basically, again, UNEP and AIT has collaborated, and we have developed quite a comprehensive report or probably on this wastewater and COVID-19, including the challenges of wastewater reuse in the COVID because of the contamination levels due to the chemicals, due to the plastics, masks, and so on. So towards end of May and in June, we will have 2 webinars on that wastewater and COVID-19. So please stay tuned for that one. And also please stay tuned for Dr. Kim's work on the e-waste and capacity building. And also please stay tuned with Dr. Sujitra's work on the waste management and also Ms. Song's work on the green buildings and overall on the sustainable infrastructure as Mr. Robin was presenting, and on the top of a UNEP like circular economy led by Elza Tonda. So back to Kun Orathai. Dr. Orathai, please.
Thank you very much. So I would like to, next session will be the Q&A. So we will continue with the questions. So I would like to ask the 3 speakers, 3 experts to still stay on the spotlight. And I'm not sure if you have seen the question in the question and answer box, but I can read one by one so other participants can see as well. So we have about 5 minutes on this. And if there are some leftover question, the organizer will also send the answer to the participant afterward. So for the next question, it's going to Ms. Song on the green building. The question is asking how to improve the fund policy of green buildings to be more scientific and practical in China. Could you please briefly answer this question, Ms. Song?
Oh, I have already answered this question just now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And yes, then I'll just move to the next question on the feasibility of spreading the case in Shenzhen green buildings. Are you like typing to answer this now, or do you want to answer it live?
I'd like to type in.
Okay. So yes, then please share the answer. So we have that two questions for Ms. Song on the China case study. And then the next question is on the incorporate on the SDG project with UNEP and also AIT. I'm not sure who can help address this question now, or do we send this question later, the answer to this question later?
I can try to reply.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musnad.
So basically, we have a project on the circular economy and in different sectors, I would call it. Like as I mentioned, we just had a quite intensive circular economy with the sustainable lifestyles, with the circular cities, with the plastic management, with the sustainable food systems, and so on. And so for that, if anyone would like to provide, on the one hand, as I say, that we always put everything is online. So if you want to provide any inputs or anything, that's highly appreciated. But more important, if you want to contribute the case studies, as we are developing the knowledge management platform, bringing all this, so all our webinars, all our modules, everything is recorded and is available there. It can be enriched with your case studies or with your, I would say, lectures even. So if you would like to contribute, that should be crisp, as 5 minutes range, and in case if it's really interesting, then can go to 10 minutes, but try to be 5 minutes. Then we will highly appreciate. We will might edit a little bit, and then we add to our project that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Musnad. For the last 3 minutes in this Q&A session, I would like to ask each of the speakers to share with us, what do you think it would be the most important factor to allow the systematic changes to transform for Thailand to transform to the circular economy? Anyone can start first if you want to.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yes. Can you kindly share with us what do you think will be the key factor to allow the systematic changes in Thailand to move to the circular economy based on your different experience in this circular economy project and issue?
Okay, for myself, I mentioned I would like the government to take a leading role as a political champion to take the lead on the waste management reform. I think this is a kind of urgent issue, and it's kind of systemic transformation. It's the one thing, and I have seen the opinion from the question Q&A that they mentioned about the advantage of waste to energy, and we have kind of misinformation about that we don't need to reduce waste exhaust, we just burn it, but in fact, it's not true. It's kind of in a pipe solution. Even though the burning the solid waste to create electricity is good, one thing that you can get rid of garbage, but not everything can be burned. And it's also left with some pollution, like toxic substance like dioxide of furan. If you don't segregate waste at source, you cannot throw everything into the incinerators, but you at least have to separate at household and at source, that you need to separate to burnable and unburnable waste. So this is one thing have been implemented in other countries, but we can't misperceive and then throw everything in the incinerator, which is kind of polluted. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kim, can you share with us, what do you think would be the key factor that allows systematic change in this transformation to circular economy that, Thailand can adopt to?
Well, I'd like to emphasize the importance and usefulness of the collection center. The collection center for EVs and used EV batteries and decommissioned PV panels. The collection center is a basic infrastructure to respond the increasing production, increasing deployment of EVs and PV panels in the power and transportation sector. Although there will be a difference in degree, but all countries will experience this at some point. So I think I'd like to suggest that we can think of the center across ASEAN countries in partnership with the Korean government or UNEP, including the the EV battery manufacturers and the PV panel manufacturers. So we can think of kind of regional EPR thing that we can gather through this. We can gather knowledge and information and performance data that can enhance the circularity of the future energy infrastructure. And I think the UNEP and AIT and KI can do important role in this region. And I'd like to share with my idea this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Song, do you have any insight to share with us regarding the factor that will allow systematic change for this transformation?
Sure. Because I do policy research, so I think the perfection and implementation of the policy system is a macro key point, which can systematically provide power for the transformation of circular economy. So actually, the perfection of policy is like a macro concept. So it can include like capacity development, knowledge transfer, and finance incentives, etc. So it's a more comprehensive measure. So I think it's also of vital importance for this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thanks again, all the three experts, Dr. Kim, Dr. Suchitra, Dr. Song, and Ms. Song, and then also Dr. Mustard for the lively, insightful session. And now we are approaching to the end of the webinar. May I invite Dr. Christopher Garnier, the Executive Director of AIT Extensions, to deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Wow. An hour and a half has already gone by. It's just unbelievable that we were given the opportunity to learn so much valuable information, and it went by in a snap. You know, the challenge or the highlight that was really discussed, or the focus was, how do we reduce carbon emission by 25% in 2030 and to become carbon neutral by 2050? And when you have a massive challenge like that, the only way to solve it is through innovation, to be innovative. And diversity breeds innovation. I'm going to repeat that again. Diversity breeds innovation. And what a diverse group that we've had here to discuss something that is vitally important to our entire globe. If we just start off just thinking about who started this webinar with Miss Tanda from the UK, with a degree from a university in Italy. We move to Dr. Naveed, who is a Pakistani national, with a degree from the Asian Institute of Technology right here in Thailand. To Dr. Mushtaq, who, thank you so much, sir, for putting this together for us, but is also a Pakistani national with degrees from the UK and Japan. Moving to Mr. Palmer, a Canadian with degrees from Canada and from Spain. Moving on to Dr. Kim from South Korea. To Dr. Sujitra from Thailand and a PhD from Japan. To Ms. Song, who studied at the University of Michigan and who's in China, all the way down to our mediator, Dr. Orthiat, who is here in Thailand, but did work with the U.S. Army Corps and also work with the University of Mississippi. What a phenomenal group of minds, of intellectuals, of individuals of diversity that are coming together to solve these problems that are vitally crucial to be solved in order for us to have this world of sustainability that's important to our children and our children's children. Again, this hour and a half went by so quickly with this a wealth of information and knowledge. I am so grateful to have this relationship with UNEP and just looking forward to further relationships or further collaboration in order to share this knowledge and this information. You know, AIT Extension, we are the executive education corporate development arm of the Asian Institute of Technology. And if you liked what you heard, we will be conducting further training and programs on circular economy and sustainable infrastructure at the end of June. I encourage you to look out for our flyers, our marketing, so you can be part of this conversation. Again, thank you so much for the collaboration of UNEP, and thank you so much to the panelists for your just plethora of deep knowledge and training that you gave to us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christopher. And on behalf of the organizer, the UN, the UNEP, and then also AIT, I would like to thanks again for all the speakers and also the participants for your valued times and also contribution inputs to these webinars. And also for the last minute, I would like to give the floor back to Ajahn Varavet for at AIT to talk to take us to the final the form of the meeting evaluation. Ajahn Varavet, I return the floor to you. Thank you.
So we are, thank you very much. Thank you all the speakers and moderators and participants. Our audience is very important. And as Dr. Chris said, you know, stay tuned that we are going to have a next event, which is related to the circular economy and sustainable infrastructure. So please stay tuned. We will have the capacity building and training related to these subjects in the later months so that you can maybe, you know, participate. Before we close it, we would like to request for your cooperation to have the feedback. So the QR code is there on your screen, so you can click and then you get the form so that your feedback will be important for us to, you know, adjust or improve the next webinars and the next event. And that will be feed into the design of the training program and the events in the future. So last but not the least, thanks you once again, and we will see you for the next event. And thank you for today. Bye-bye from AIT.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Sawadee ka.
Thank you.